Okay, so we've been invited up to tour the Enterprise. Enterprise boarding party is ready for beam up, energize.
So right off the bat, I have to let you know that in order to tour the Enterprise, you have to agree to no videotaping, no filming of any kind, but you can take as many pictures as you like. Therefore, what we're going to do is we're just going to be showing you a slideshow of the pictures of our tour. We arrived on the Enterprise in the transporter room. It's an odd thing having your molecules spread across the universe. 2 other couples arrived, and then we began our tour right there in the transporter room. Our guide showed us the basic operation of the console. Here you can see the targeting screen and the buffering graph, the cross-circuiting switches on the right, the pad activation switches on the left, and of course the tri-redundant energizer sliders. Of course, everybody wanted their picture with the console. Connor looking through the sensor station. It's a duplicate of what Spock has on the bridge. Leaving the transporter room, which was on the right there, we entered into the main hallway. At the end was the turbo-lift doors. This is the same hallway where Sulu had his sword fight, also where the salt creature was stalking Janet and Uhura. They stopped to show us a ship communication panel. They had Cameron relay a message to the bridge. Of course, Captain Kirk replied. Connor inadvertently sounded the alarm. We proceeded on down the hallway to the sick bay. Look at the designs on that back wall there. Here we are in the examination room of the sick bay area, and the examination bed and the monitor right above it. The examination bed was constructed so that it would accommodate the stature of Leonard Nimoy. The monitor, as we saw it, was a flat screen, but back in the old days, in the 60s, it was puppetry. Here's a desk in the examination room. And if you're my age, you could probably remember those little writing tablets where you could then lift up the piece of plastic and the writing would disappear. Yeah, that's on the right there. And on the left, the red and the black, salt and pepper shakers. It's the crew's health data center. The rest of sick bay was a rest and recovery area. This is where Uhura was re-educated after her encounter with Nomad. And on the far right there, that's the bed where Khan was laid when he was pulled out of his freezing chamber. Right across from his bed was a museum piece of old, archaic medical devices. And of course, the first thing he did was take that bottom knife and threaten McCoy's life. From there, we moved into McCoy's office and his desk, his medical tricorder safely preserved on a shelf, and of course, in the corner, an interface with the main ship's computer. On the other side of his office was the medical science lab, still analyzing that creature that attached itself to the back of Spock. As Connor was taking a look around the lab, I noticed that console behind him. That's the same console that was used in the psychological treatment room at the psych colony. Oh, here's the device that Clint Howard used to get some Tranya to hold a toast after the Corbomite maneuver. I was trying to get some Tranya myself. From there, they took us into the briefing room. On the table were a number of games, the interface with the ship's computer, and Spock's Lyra. Here's a better view of the instrument. And of course, on the back are the signatures of the cast. Here's a view from the ship's computer interface. You can see the 3-dimensional chess set there, and the view screen at the far end of the room. Here's a shot of us in front of the view screen. They gave us a good look at the Starfleet Federation flag, which was actually an Easter egg dedication to Desi Arnaz. If you look closely, it's the Cuban flag with the Starfleet emblem on it. From there, they escorted us on into the captain's quarters. Of course, there was only one room for the quarters, and what they did for the show was they just changed out all the decor for the different quarters. While we were in there, the alarm activated, and we could see an overloading phaser stuck up in the alarm light area. Exiting the captain's stateroom, we headed down towards the engineering decks. This, of course, was the auxiliary control room, which had a view screen as well, and 3 panels. There were a lot of panels in there with blinking lights that turned on and off and on and off. And we couldn't figure out what they did except for turning on and off and on and off. We even gave them a very close-up inspection. Continuing through the engineering hallways, we came upon a Jeffries tube. They allowed us to get a close-up look and take some pictures in front of the Jeffries tube. Chris wanted to take a closer look inside the tube. But to really see what was going on in there, you had to lay on your back and look up. Yeah, that's what I learned by crawling around in submarines. After the Jeffries tube, they took us on over to the engineering space. And here we are in the largest room on the set. Of course, with the extension up to the nacelles and the engineering panels and the dilithium chambers. Of course, the engineering console had a video interface with the bridge. We couldn't climb to the second deck of the engineering space, but you could see Chris was looking at climbing. He's always looking at climbing. Tree guy, you know. Here we are looking at the dilithium chamber assembly, the chamber where the dilithium crystals would sit. They look like a popsicle. And then here is the life support control area. For a moment, we wanted to sit there and sing Sweet Kathleen, but thought better of it. While we were there, the ship had to lurch a little bit to avoid an asteroid. Yeah, Chris got caught unaware and was thrown up against the nacelle grate. Here's a view of the nacelle area. That's the arm leading up to the nacelles for the warp drive. From the engineering spaces, we all piled back up into the turbo lift, and we went to the bridge. You'd feel the rush as the doors slid open, and there was the iconic bridge of the Enterprise. Our guide gave us a little bit of a lowdown on the different stations and reminded us to take any sharp objects off of our pockets or belts so that nothing would get scratched or punctured. And there's the navigation and helm station. This was the communications station where Lieutenant Uhura would sit. Here I'm checking out the sensors at Spock's station. This was the engineering side of the bridge where Scotty would stand when he wasn't down in engineering directly. And of course, we all got the chance to sit in the captain's chair. Cameron being very thoughtful about the next order to be given. Connor taking the air of authority in the captain's seat. Christopher intently trying to figure out what the next maneuver is going to be by the Klingon ship out there. And me, well, I'm just playing the tourist, sitting in that 50-year-old chair. Of course, I'm sure you all realize that it's just the Star Trek original series set tour. This can be found in Ticonderoga in New York. Each one of the panels could be removed for their camera angles. And of course, you can see there was no top on the set because that's where all the lighting would come in. View of the bridge set from a different angle. Again, you can see the roof of the building there. Of course, when they filmed it, would be in a larger sound stage, and there would be all sorts of scaffolding and lights above them. Here you can see what the transporter room really looks like without the roof on it in a wide-angle lens. Now, this piece here was the original bridge console for navigation and helm. It was also the transporter console. It was used in the original pilot. Here again in the sickbay area, you can see what the set looked like, where they would put the lighting, and again, all these panels could be removed for different camera angles. The health monitors were actually sliders that somebody stood behind the walls and moved the little arrows up and down. That's what I meant by puppetry. And also in the hallway, you can see there was no roof on the hallway. They would set their lighting in there, and you can see the gobo up there, which would create the designs on the walls, so it wouldn't look quite so plain. There were really only 3 hallways to the whole set. The entrance hallway here, then the central hallway, and then the engineering hallway. We don't want to forget about the store out front and museum pieces with a giant model of the Enterprise. They had a number of the costumes on display here and a number of the tools and props. On the right is the Orion slave girl costume. On the bottom, the little foam cubes for when the aliens turned the entire crew into those foam cubes. There's a Klingon uniform, and on the left was Terry Garr's costume. Here's Spock, Uhura's, and Kirk's costume. Here we have some props from the original pilot, a phaser, communicator, and the goggles and utility belt. And then we have the medical props. There's his hypospray devices. More medical props. In the back there on the bottom are tools from Spock's brain, the control unit for Spock during Spock's brain, and the earpieces that Spock and Uhura wore. And then on the left are the floppy disk drives, which are nothing more than little blocks of wood. They had a number of things that were being preserved, including the phaser here. Here's another phaser, engineering pieces, and a tricorder. The claymore that James Doohan used. There are the collars from the arena episode and the camera and Nazi hat from that episode. And up in the upper right, the ship's bell from the trials in the briefing room. This was my favorite piece that they had on hand was Nomad. And of course, they have the bells from the Pon farr episode, a bottle of Romulan ale, and the far right is the Genesis device. Yep, this was a great little tour, the Star Trek Original Series set tour in Ticonderoga, New York. It's a great time if you're a Star Trek fan. Okay, I know this was a little different type of video, but I hope you enjoyed it. Star Trek, you gotta love it. Thank you, Lucy and Desi, for producing that. Until next time, thanks for watching, and we will see you on the streets.